Well, well, well. They've gone and done it, haven't they?
That would be turning off Hyperroll at the end of our Cyber City set.
Now, this is hardly a shock to anyone since they announced back in May of 2022, 40 years ago, that this was going to happen, that they were going to take out Hyperroll. However, they said at the time that they were going to replace it with something similar, and they wouldn't take it out until they had a replacement. Well, there ain't no replacement coming, at least anytime soon, and I don't think they have a clue what they want to replace it with, because they're still sticking with their old nonsensical story.
We knew Hyperroll missed our intended goals. Players still lacked an effective tool for learning TFT. Hyperroll was more stressful than normal or ranked for many players due to the number of actions needing to be taken each round.
I called bullshit when they first said that 3 years ago, and I called bullshit again. It worked perfectly. It is exactly what they intended. That is the excuse they are using to get rid of it, because the augments threw the entire thing off. But okay, that whatever. I've gone over that in like 20 different videos. And I debated for a few weeks whether to even make this video, but since I was the first and pretty much only Hyperroll exclusive creator, I couldn't just let it go without saying something. So here are the parts to this video. First, there's going to be a little ad for something that's personal to me. You'll explain. You can skip over it if you want. That'll be next. Then I'm going to tell you the builds that you can use if you just want to get to Hyper. It's pretty easy if you just use like 3 different builds. Then I'm going to talk about fun ways you can play and that can reach kind of silly results, and we'll do that last and then just show some endings that are kind of wacky. But let me jump into the advertisement portion. Not sure if you saw the video or not, but my kid released his own game, at least the demo version of it, and I had a contest to go along with it. YouTube kind of did its normal thing, and because it wasn't Hyperroll content, it didn't get pushed out to a lot of channel subscribers, so maybe this is your first time seeing it. There were 5 prizes. First prize was a $100 gift card, and then 4 $25 gift cards. The first 2 prizes have been claimed, $100 and $25, but there is still $75 up for grabs. Link up above and in the description to the original video that describes the contest and what you have to do. So if you want to get a $25 gift card and want to try out this game, just follow that. Okay, now let's get into the other stuff. So let's start with you want to just win. The easiest build to win with is going to be what I called CyberTech. It's Cyber Boss and Techie, and you bring in a little bit of Street Demon with Nico at the end, but it's this combination, pretty much these items. I like going blue buff, Spear of Sojin, and Jeweled Gauntlet on Vigor just because it works really well, and then you itemize Brand, and you're just gonna win. But there's a couple of issues with it. The biggest problem is there's probably 3 or 4 other people doing the identical build. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I've seen 3 of the top 4 going CyberTech or some form thereof. There are a lot of pigeonhole augments that lead directly to this. So once you take that augment in the first round, you're kind of stuck down either the Techie or the Cyber Boss route. There's one called Cower Weaklings, which is specific to Cyber Bosses. There are 2 or 3 for Techies. If you take them, you're kind of stuck with it, and often you'll see multiple people taking them. You can go, you can make it. I'll have a link in the description so that you can copy the team code and paste it in, but you'll win with this and you'll definitely climb to Hyper, even if you just use this. One other small thing I should caution you with this build is it tends to get people a little angry for some reason. So don't be surprised if you catch hate when you end up using it. By the way, if you get an emblem, go to the 8 Techies instead of the Street Smarts. You'll get superpowers, but yeah, people they get a little upset when they lose to this. Now this one's one of my favorites, and there's a few different ways of getting for it, which is why I even roll through the augments here. But anytime I see a BoomBot crest or a way to get to it, I want to take it. 6 BoomBots is almost unstoppable, and it's a lot of fun to build, but I want to talk about some mistakes that I consistently see people making when they're playing this. Put your additional BoomBot emblem on a rapid fire. I can't tell you the number of people I see put it on a bruiser up front. The way BoomBots work has to do with damage output, and you are far better to have it on a second rapid fire because they'll be enhanced by Kog'Maw. If you can get to the gold 3-star Kog'Maw, then I like to load items onto them. Otherwise, you're going to move everything over to Urgot once you get it. But again, key, use the second rapid fire to enhance Kog'Maw and vice versa, and have the other BoomBot emblem be there. That will allow you to pour out damage very, very quickly and win your matches fast, and with a lot of authority, end up winning the game. In a perfect world, you can end up with something like this, which is 6/6, bruisers and BoomBots. You're gonna need an additional emblem or a tactician's crown in order to pull this off, but it is well worth it when you do, because then Cho just becomes nearly unstoppable. Again, still put that emblem on the rapid fire in the back to enhance Kog'Maw. And I can already hear people saying, but the additional damage you get from... No, the front line goes down too fast. Put it on the back line. And with like CyberTech, don't be too shocked if you see matches come down to BoomBot versus BoomBot. So even if you get cornered into it with something like Hunter Killer Missiles or just a BoomBot emblem, you have a good chance, even if there's competition, of getting not only into the top 4, but winning. It just really comes down to luck at that point as to who gets the right items, and also putting the emblem on the other rapid fire. Okay, let's move on to the next build. Bastion Marksman still works for me, but requires a ton of luck because you're going to have to 2-star all of your key champs. That's Renekton, Aphelios, and Xayah. If you don't have them all 2-starred and all itemized, you're just going to get walloped early. So this is one I like to look for early marksman, like getting Jinx out of a NPC round or a Galio, something that gives me the ability to build into it. But if you can get into it and you get all the right items, you're gonna win fairly consistently, but don't force yourself into that one because it'll lead to a lot of disappointment. So if you were just looking to win, those are the go-to builds I would look towards in pretty much every game. However, this set being what it is allowed for a lot of builds where you could end up with sort of outrageous results, whether it's due to augments or various other little quirks in kind of how everything operates. So one thing you can do is when you get one of those levels that starts with the golem with the 3 things, if you happen to get Cooking Pot, you can then build your champions into just unstoppable monsters of death. And you'll see here that as it changes over to level, every single thing that has a spatula or pan attached is going to feed the champion in the middle. And you can take this to absolutely nonsensical extremes because you end up with giant champions as they grow in size, as they grow in health. In this case, I just decided to keep feeding a Mundo because I thought it would be funny to have a big, giant Mundo in the middle of the screen, just taking up space. Now, if you get lucky and get an early Cho, you can end up with something like this, where you have lots of really big bruisers taking up the front line, and when Cho gets this big in a BoomBot build, even though it's 5 BoomBots, yeah, there's not much they're going to be able to do about it. Cho is one of those champions that can just grow out of control, and in this case, you fed him a lot of health, and he's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Now here's the thing, even when I don't have the golem with the 3 emblems, I go ahead and take the Cooking Pot any single chance I can. And the reason is that with a little luck, you can turn it into a BoomBot emblem and keep feeding your champs along the way. Now, the general hope is that you can get a Reforger and then turn the pot into a spatula and then use a Chain Vest to turn it into a BoomBot emblem, which will work. Or sometimes you get lucky and you get the spatula out of the items. Then again, it goes on whoever your rapid fire is. Make sure they're closest to Cho, and they're going to keep feeding him throughout the match. Now, you're not going to have as massive a Cho as you do when you have the Golem feeding, but even with just the cooking pot, you're going to get enough extra health that it's going to make a huge difference and make this very, very hard to beat. But let's go ahead and move out of the BoomBot territory and into something else. S.T.A.M.P was actually one of my favorite builds during the PBE, and it's just combining Strategist and AMP. The only issue with it is you don't want to try it unless you have a really good chance of hitting anything, which means either you get a Yumi out of the first NPC round or you don't really try this, because you're going to need that to get through the middle part of this game. Otherwise, you're just going to start losing in stage 6, and it's going to be pretty relentless because you're going to be stuck at 3 amps and 3 strategists, desperately hoping for the 4 cost, which is either Ziggs, Nico, or Annie. Preferably you want Annie at that point because she's going to bring the bear. You're going to load AP onto Annie, anything that helps her cast faster so she can get the bear out there. But if you can put this together, it is very, very hard to beat. But everything needs to go perfectly, but it's a lot of fun to do when you get it together, largely because people don't expect it to win. Now, I would be highly remiss if I didn't mention Nitro at all in this video. I see it a little bit more as a fun build because it's very, very situational. I only use it when I have rerolls available to me or Starry Nights. I want to know I'm going to be able to get to the gold 3 stars of the key champs, Nidalee, Kindred, Shyvana, and Elise, because you need them in order to build up the giant T-Hex that's going to help you win the game. Then after that, there are kinds of lots of different ways you can fill in what you want the rest of the team to be. The most reliable of those is going to be CyberTech, and that's because you're going to get Bastion by putting in Poppy. You're going to get Tech along with Vigor, and then whatever other 2 techs you can bring in, so you get to 4 techies. And so you're going to have a pretty strong team, and the T-Hex is going to act as a good tank to soak up damage while Vigor just tears everything apart. But from my experience, that's not actually the strongest comp you can put together with Nitro. That's actually AMP. If you can get all of the AMP champs along with your Nitro, that is going to be one of, if not the strongest combination in the entire game. And I'll show you why I believe that. You know how a 3-star legendary champ is usually the end of the game? Well, this combination, yeah, it doesn't quite work that way because they have a 3-star legendary Kabuko, but the AMP champs can take them down so fast that Viego ends up going, no, that's my 3-star legendary Kabuko. And then once you have a 3-star legendary Kabuko on your own team, along with the AMP champs, yeah, it's pretty much all she wrote for anyone you're facing. But again, Nitro AMP, yeah, that's going to be the combo to go for if you can make it happen. Now, the other thing you can do is work in Dynamo, and that would be bringing in Morgana. If you can get her to the gold 3 stars, it's also important to get a 2-star Aurora and then get a 2-star 5 cost into that leftmost slot. In this case, I threw a Viego over there. No, it's not going to give him his power, but he's still going to be a force on the screen. This is a pretty sinister combo. However, I tend to avoid Morgana because, well, almost everyone is using her, which means your chances of getting her to gold 3 stars are small. And I don't find multiple Morgana teams in the end, where I do find multiple Nitros or multiple Cyberboss teams. So let's talk for a moment about vertical traits. Are they worth going for? In general, no. You're not going to get the 2 emblems you require to take Street Demons to 10 or Anima Squad to 10. However,
If you do, then they are a lot of fun because you're probably going to win. Now, in the fight of Street Demons versus Anima Squad is going to win, but if you're unopposed that way, then go for the Street Demons. You want to maximize Strategist with this because that will make Nico much stronger in the front line and give you a lot more damage in the back line with Samira. Those are going to be your two absolutely key champs who you're going to want fully itemized. Of course, if you can get the 2-star Brand, 3-star Jinx, and all of that other good stuff, it's just going to make it that much easier. But you can see with the 10 Street Demons, yeah, you're probably going to win. Now, with Street Demons, it's somewhat important for you to have that backup synergy that's going to help the team. Anima Squad, not so much. It really doesn't matter what you put together once you have the 10 Anima Squad, because a train is just going to run over the other team and take them out. So unless you just put in like all 1-star, maybe then, but otherwise, yeah, you're just gonna win with that. Now, with Anima Squad, there are some extreme circumstances where you may be able to win without getting to 10, but I would not do this as a general rule. I find you generally don't get into the top 4 because you get knocked out by the CyberTech teams and other teams like that. But if you do manage to get there, it can win. It's just very rare. And I mentioned Morgana earlier and that I generally don't like using her because it's so competitive, but if you get the right circumstance, you can make it work. In this case, I got the Dynamo emblem, which I was able to put on Varus, so he was going to cast very quickly. And then it's always important to get a 2-star 5 cost so that when Aurora casts, she puts something in that's strong. In this case, it was a Garen, but that allows enough time for everything to kind of work out, and we end up beating the techie team. But overall, this was kind of a bittersweet video to make because it's sad to see Hyperroll go, and on a set that I really didn't like. For me, TFT has had a big problem, and Hyperroll in particular has had this problem, especially since set 10 when they started going to 10 every time because it became just a little too easy to do this. Get that gold 3-star 4 cost that was going to just win the game no matter what build you had worked on along the way. There are so many augments and so many builds that kind of force you down the path. Once you start into Syndicate snipers, it's really hard to get away from because you're counting on Shaco getting more and more powerful as the match goes on. But then you're locked into either you get a 3-star Zed to win, or you're probably going out somewhere between 5th and 3rd. And far, far too often in whatever build, it didn't matter. It came down to things like this. Notice I only lost 1 match early in a techie cyber boss or CyberTech build, and now I have a 3-star Brand. So there is no way I'm going to lose at this point. And too many matches came down this way, one way or the other, where someone just hit some ridiculous build or ridiculous circumstance and would run away with the entire match. And when it happened to me, I just feel the need to apologize, but this person isn't even going to get to see it because they surrendered before I even hit enter. So yeah, rest in peace Hyperroll, although I feel like it became a shadow of what it was when it started for reasons they could have fixed. And I just wish they would be honest with us about the reasons and not make up a story about how, oh, this isn't what we intended, even though it was. And I hope they make Talker Trials into the roguelike it could be, because that could be the learning experience for TFT that they want. And I'm going to end this on this game, because this really, I played this earlier today before I made this video, and it really showcases the problem I have with what Hyperroll and TFT have kind of become. This was a pure luck thing. I saw the cooking pot, I grabbed it, I decided I'm going to try to make the world's biggest poppy. And the reason I did that is because you can also make a techie emblem out of the cooking pot. Then I happened to get another spatula, and I just was able to line it up and keep feeding Poppy
over and over again. I lost pretty much straight through until Poppy got so big that there was no way to kill her anymore. And when you're on the other side of this equation, it just doesn't feel good. And that's what's been missing for me for these last few seasons, and why I'm sad to see Hyper Roll go, because it was a great mode, but in many ways I'm not going to miss it because I wasn't playing it that much anyway, and I only played it a little bit so I could make this video to say goodbye to it. But it's things like this. This victory didn't feel like I planned out a really great strategy. It just felt like I got really, really lucky and ended up winning. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed Hyper Roll while it was here and this video, and as always, have an absolutely, absolutely awesome day.